So, once again, we'll look at Nisargadatta, see what he has to say to us. And he says, whatever may be the situation, if it is acceptable, it is pleasant. If it is not acceptable, it is painful. What makes it acceptable is not important. The cause may be physical, or psychological, or untraceable. Acceptance is the decisive factor. Obviously, suffering is due to non-acceptance. The person says, but pain is not acceptable. He says, why not? Did you ever try it? Do try, and you will find in pain a joy which pleasure cannot yield. For the simple reason that acceptance of pain takes you much deeper than pleasure does. The personal self, the me, by its very nature, is constantly pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain. Right? The ending of this pattern is the ending of the me. The ending of the me with its desires and fears enables you to return to your real nature, the source of all happiness and peace. The perennial desire for pleasure is the reflection of the timeless harmony within. It is an observable fact that one becomes self-conscious only when caught in the conflict between pleasure and pain, which demands choice and decision. The perennial desire for pleasure is the reflection of the timeless harmony within. That's an interesting.
I'm surprised he didn't say happiness instead of pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Wouldn't that have seemed to have more
That's right.
convergence?
Well, yes. I can see where the desire for happiness is the desire. That's a reflection of the desire of that harmony within, because that's the happiness that's within. Mm-hmm. That's our true nature.
Right.
So it's searching for itself.
Mm-hmm.
It is this clash.
Well, did you read that sentence that you liked?
Yes. The perennial desire for pleasure is the reflection of the timeless harmony within.
So you're looking for that.
Yes.
It's already there, naturally.
But it's already there. So Paul said, why use the word pleasure? Because really pleasure is of the me. Happiness is of one's true nature. And that harmony, that happiness within, is searching for itself.
How did it lose itself?
It has never lost itself.
then
It
why is
cannot.
it working? But then why is it working? I mean,
It's,
somehow it's separate because that's what ego is, maybe, the separateness thing?
the happiness within, which is our true nature, is always there.
Mhm.
However, one forgets that it is always there.
Like me with the annoyances.
Yeah. So we forget that it's always there. But there is within us, that's why I love this sentence, it is the reflection of the timeless harmony within. So this searching for what he called the desire, I use the word searching, maybe it's not. The desire for that happiness, for that pleasure, is really that harmony within, desiring itself or wanting itself or calling, or that's the call that the ego is trying to answer. But it looks outside itself for pleasure, thinking that it will give it happiness, and it does for a while, but it's never permanent, because as soon as it gets some pleasure, the mind becomes still, it's quiet, that desire for pleasure has been satisfied, and there's a beautiful stillness. You've all felt it. It's like this total peace, but it doesn't stay, because the next desire comes up. But with happiness, which is our true nature, it's always there. What blocks it? What prevents us from knowing this? That me! That's why he says here. That's why he says, the end of the me, with its desires and fears, enables you to return to your real nature, the source of all happiness and peace. It is the clash between desire and fear that causes anger, which is the great destroyer of sanity in life.
Desire and fear.
Ah, yes. The clash between desire and fear. I desire that. I'm afraid I'm not going to get that. Or, I want this, I desire it, and there's a fear of getting it. A fear of not having it. It's always that turmoil between the two. And that, of course, that causes anger. When pain is accepted for what it is, a lesson and a warning, and deeply looked into and heeded, the separation between pain and pleasure breaks down. Both become experience, painful when resisted, joyful when accepted. Let's look at that. In this, it is the clash between desire and fear that causes anger, which is the great destroyer of sanity in life. When pain is accepted for what it is, a lesson and a warning, a lesson to learn from, or a warning that something needs to be attended to. And deeply looked into. Don't run from the pain. Stay with it. Stay with it, stay with it with all your strength and courage.
I always ask myself, what's the lesson here?
Mm-hmm.
What am I to learn from this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So staying with the pain. when it's accepted for what it is, a lesson and a warning, and deeply looked into and heeded, the separation between pain and pleasure breaks down. Both become experience, painful when resisted, joyful when accepted. Okay. Because they both become experience, it's the me that's experiencing them. And when the me resists pain, obviously, it's painful. When it is accepted, it can become joyful. Because as he said before, the acceptance of pain takes us to a much deeper level.
You mean like working through a conflict or working through
Whatever the
it's all-
pain
it's
is,
all-
the pain of loss,
Yeah.
the pain of rejection, whatever the pain,
Who are you
whatever.
reading from? I'm sorry.
Nisargadatta.
Oh, good.
Nisargadatta. So, what he said.
So I was thinking when we
I'm
were
sorry.
talking about the pain and desire, it's reminded me of the psychoanalytic principle of, I just went-
Avoiding pain.
Pain, yeah, the pleasure principle.
The pleasure
The
principle.
pleasure principle.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, the organism's gonna, look for pleasure.
That's right. And
you know,
avoid
and
pain.
avoid pain.
But it's the me that's doing that.
Yeah.
The ego is
Right.
doing that. So he's saying, how can we break that cycle, that
Mhm.
pattern?
Mm-hmm.
Because in breaking that pattern, we're loosening that me.
Yeah.
And we're becoming aware. And that's really the only way to do it, is to become aware, moment by moment, of how that me is avoiding pain and searching for pleasure. Avoiding pain and searching for pleasure. I mean, that's the movement.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also strengthening this me. Getting it stronger, making it stronger. And what we want to do is begin to take some of that energy out of it. Use the me as it's needed when it's needed. The me or the mind or thought is only a pointer. It's an instrument as a pointer.
Do you mean like take away the power? Don't give
Yes.
something that's so awful power?
Yes, yes, yes. And use it for what it's
And use it
meant
for
to
what it's meant
be.
right.
Just a pointer so that you
Right.
function with clarity, with sanity, with compassion.
Mhm.
And not wrap yourself up in this identification with this me and suffer.
Do you know
Oh
what
yeah, I
that-
don't want to suffer.
No more suffering,
There's no
we're
more
ending, no
suffering.
more pain, no
No
more
more
suffering.
suffering.
Pain, there may be no
Pain,
suffering.
yeah, but suffering,
So it sounds like we're talking about emotional pain, not physical pain.
Well, it could be both. It could be both. The difference is that maybe there isn't any. Pain there is. You can't help it. There's physical pain. You're not going to stop physical pain. It'll come, it'll go. Sometimes
Right,
it
but
never
how
stops.
does physical pain ever become pleasure?
Physical pain does, well, it depends. First of all, it never becomes pleasure. But if you don't resist it, if you don't fight it, you really begin to accept it. Begin to accept it. No more resistance. Then there will be what pleasure? Peace. Finally, peace. The body will still feel the pain. But the suffering will end. Because the suffering is from the mind. Right? What is this pain? What does this mean? What's going to happen to me? All the thoughts that you project with the pain.
It's like a letting go.
Are you saying that the me controls the pain?
No. No, the me,
Read my mind.
no. What the me does, it runs away from pain. The ego runs away from pain, and it runs toward pleasure.
Or to get rid of the pain?
It wants to get rid of pain, and it tries to avoid pain. I mean, just look at your own self. I mean, isn't that what we all do?
No, I'm thinking about physical pain. I'm thinking about a friend of mine who's just had surgery and
Oh, yes.
she's in pain all day.
That's right.
She's in pain,
Yes.
the medication is not working,
Yes.
and she's in pain.
Yes. Yes. It is possible. I don't know for how many people it's possible, but it is possible because we know people for whom it's been possible
You know
to
what?
no longer fight the pain, to accept it, and to let it take its course, and wherever we can, to begin to have some kind of a distance from it. But that would also mean we would have to begin to really accept that we are not this body. The body's gonna do what the body's gonna do. But what is it that's aware of all this? And what is it that's fighting this? So even with physical pain, sometimes it's very interesting. If you have a pain in your tooth and you press on your finger or someplace else, the pain can switch itself. It's where the focus seems to go. It'll come back, but it's where the focus is and where the resistance goes. Can we not resist it? Physical pain, and certainly emotional pain. Now, many, many more people are walking around with emotional pain than physical pain. And what do we do with ourselves with physical pain? We're constantly fighting it, resisting it, rationalizing it. Actually, we get on the train with it, and we then expand it. One thought leads to another thought, and we expand it. Rather than, in the awareness of the moment of it, to pull the plug, just like from out of a socket, so that it loosens the energy and does not give life to it. Now, it may stop for a moment and then come right back. And then you have to keep pulling that plug and not give life to it. If it persists, then we've got to investigate and look more deeply into it. And the very first question we must ask, what purpose is this serving us? What purpose is this serving me?
What is the this?
This emotional pain.
Well, if we didn't have the me to identify with, I'm using Carol's word because that was the word that thought provoked. In a way, as samsaric and suffering causing as having such an identification with the me is, if we were not identified with the me, we would have to face some kind of empty, spacious, not personhood.
Yes.
So that's, I mean, I either am me or I'm that, you know.
You are that.
I know, but how does that relate to normal, you know, life?
Ah.
That's the problem. That's
You-
what gets in the way of happiness, really.
Well, if we were blessed, if we had the grace shone on us, shine, the light of grace on us, and we were free of this me, only where necessary, then where is fear and where is desire? And then you go through life, facing whatever life unfolds.
when you talk about being free of the me, it really brings you right back to thought. With no thought, there is no me. The me comes alive with the movement of thought, right? With no movement of thought, I am at peace. So now the question becomes to discriminate between what kind of thinking am I doing. If I need to go from here to California, I need to plan a route. If I need to balance my checkbook, I need to use thinking. So that kind of thinking serves us well. It's the other kind of thinking, the me thinking, that causes trouble. The what if I break down and get mugged and killed on my way to California?
The what ifs.
The what ifs,
What's
right?
that?
The what ifs that occur when I project thought into the future from my me place, or when I look back and have regret, and then poor me, right? So when you talk about the me and not identifying with it and not having it run amok in my life, you get very then connected to the next step, which is thought, and how thought is used, how I use thought in my life, the correct way of using thought. Because we're all identified with our thoughts. We all think our thoughts are conscious, right? But really the thoughts are just objects to my awareness.
Where did the thoughts come from? What is the cycle? I know that sounds crazy to ask, but what creates them?
Well, we know memory. We know memory produces thoughts, but where do they actually come from?
Is it the mind, the brain? Where? What?
It comes from the magic of neural chemistry in the brain. Some kind of a spark gets created when neurons interact. I mean, I don't know if you really asked an eminent neurobiologist where do thoughts come
I don't
from.
think they know.
I don't think they have a real definitive answer. They'll give you something about what I just said, only with more scientific, right? Just like they don't know what is consciousness. They don't know really. That's the big mystery of the day. What consciousness is. How did it come about? I mean, they can light up certain areas of the brain when you think about money or pleasure or sex or whatever. They can map that. But what is consciousness? That's the hard question in science today. The real hard question. So I don't know that there's a definitive answer about where our thoughts come from. They seem to come from anywhere. Any pop up in my head. Anything can trigger them.
We don't know
But
what our next.
imitation, I mean, if we're looking for the pleasure principle, we're gonna learn to survive. Our instincts want us to survive, so we have to learn. A baby has to know how to cry, and mother
Yes.
knows,
Yes.
has to know how to respond
Yes.
to take care of their survival needs. So it's our evolution, it's our brain, it's our search for knowing, for knowledge, for
Well, certainly it's a
and
result
then we
of
learn by
it.
identification and
But the
object naming.
yeah, but particularly how does it happen?
But what you said, it has to be,
But it's a
Yeah,
little bit of a
okay.
mystery, right?
But we don't know
I think
what our
it's-
next thought is going to be. Nobody here knows what your next thought is going to be. And that's the mystery of thought.
I don't have one at the moment. Nothing.
Good. That's good. Good.
Maybe our thoughts are not up to us, they're just coming through us.
Mhm.
It's an instrument.
Well, clearly some of them do.
Right. So this person says to him, "Well, do you advise shunning pleasure and pursuing pain?" He says, "No, nor pursuing pleasure and shunning pain. Accept both as they come. Enjoy both while they last. Let them go as they must. Because nothing stays. The pain doesn't stay. The pleasure doesn't stay. How can I possibly enjoy pain? Physical pain calls for action. Of course. And so does mental. The bliss is in the awareness of it, in not shrinking or in any way turning away from it. All happiness comes from awareness. The more we are conscious, the deeper the joy. Acceptance of pain, non-resistance, courage, and endurance. These open deep and perennial sources of real happiness and true bliss. Right? All happiness comes from awareness. The more we are conscious, the deeper the joy. You see, we tend to focus on the content of our consciousness and not on that which is aware of the content. Anything that's passing through your mind, your brain, whatever, it can't be going on without awareness. But we don't focus on the awareness. We focus on the content. We get lost in the content. And we suffer from that content.
If we make that choice.
Yeah. But we usually go right on into it.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if the content is something pleasurable, yes, we go into it, but still no awareness. What is no focus on the awareness of even the pleasurable content?
What would be the awareness for the pleasurable content?
The light, just seeing the pleasurable content arise and fade, arise and fade, and know that it's not permanent, just like the unpleasant. But what we do when the unpleasant comes, which is a thought about something unpleasant, a fear about something we've projected into the future, or a depression of something we've gone through in the past, or a fear of something we've gone through in the past that we're projecting might happen in the future. That's a train we get on, and we dwell, and we hold on to. And sometimes it almost feels like it's enjoyable.
You know what I'm feeling? That if I'm having a wonderful time and really experience great pleasure, it's like to then think about what's going on sounds to me like I'm taking away from the pleasure. To focus on it is like an exit route or something. It's not gelling for me.
Okay. When there is joy, there is no me, and there's just joy. And actually, joy and awareness or the light are one. With pleasure, it's something, usually a satisfaction of a desire. With pleasure, it's usually feeling maybe I've risen higher. I've elevated myself. I've gotten some kind of acknowledgement of something. You know, it's like a self-aggrandizement or a self that gives pleasure. So that which gives pleasure is almost always coming from, for the me, from the me, through the me. And that we really need to have an awareness of. Someone compliments you. Ah, it feels so good. No, there needs to be an awareness of that with the same awareness when somebody insults you. Because otherwise we're identifying again with the pleasure, with that which is pleasurable, and we're avoiding that which is unpleasurable. We don't want to do that anymore because we're strengthening this me, this self-centered me. But when joy comes, and as they say, joy comes uninvited. You never know when joy can come, right? A smile on a baby's face, a beautiful flower, a magnificent tree,
The moon.
the moon, oh,
last
the
night.
moon on the ocean. Last night, the moon on the ocean. That was a moment of joy. And in that moment, there was no me. A second later, the me came in and said, oh, I hope we have this tomorrow night.
Right.
But in that moment, it was pure joy. That you don't separate from, that is you. So, all right. Why should pain be more effective than pleasure, the person says. He says, pleasure is readily accepted while all the powers of the me reject pain. As the acceptance of pain is the denial of the me, and the me stands in the way of true happiness, the wholehearted acceptance of pain releases the springs of happiness. Right? As the me stands in the way of true happiness, of your real nature, the wholehearted acceptance of pain releases the springs of happiness because it's released that hold the me has. Does the acceptance of suffering act the same way? The fact of pain is easily brought within the focus of awareness. With suffering, it's not that simple. To focus suffering is not enough, for mental life as we know it is one continuous stream of suffering. To reach the deeper layers of suffering, you must go to its roots and uncover the vast underground network where fear and desire are closely interwoven, and the currents of life's energy oppose, obstruct, and destroy each other.
Could you read that again, please?
Okay. For suffering, to reach the deeper layers of suffering, you must go to its roots and uncover the vast underground network where fear and desire are closely interwoven. Fear and desire closely interwoven. And the currents of life's energy oppose, obstruct, and destroy each other. Right? Look at what it takes, the energy that it takes for fear and desire to have life. And look what it does. It opposes, it obstructs, it destroys. Our well-being, our true nature. We were meant to live in peace. We were meant to live in harmony. We were meant to live without mental suffering. That's what we were meant for. And for everyone on this planet to have joy in this beautiful planet, to live in harmony. That's what we were meant for. And happiness is our true nature. You know, you hear people all the time says, who's happy? What are you talking about happiness? Nobody's happy. No, that's not true. Yes, there are people that are not happy, that are being repressed and suppressed and tormented and tortured. But that's man-made.
But you know, I think for most people, they have fear and desire in two different corners of their life. I think for most of us, we don't typically see the connection between desire and fear. My fears are over here, but my desires, I'm really into them. Right now I'm desiring that new boat, and I'm all about it. But we don't see that with every desire, fear lurks quickly in the background, because, you know, what if I don't get my desire? Then I'm going to be, and the fear is that I might not get it. I want it so badly. Will I be able to get it? And then when I get it, you know, I'm afraid something might happen to it, right? And then you know, it just, so it's quick. It's good to see that with every desire, fear lurks closely behind it. So I get the new car and I park it in CVS, right? And when I come out, right, God forbid there might be something abnormal, and so there's fear and desire. We don't often see how closely they're related.
Attachment is the root of all suffering.
Okay, so this person says, well, how can I set right a tangle which is entirely below the level of my consciousness? And Nisargadatta says, by being with yourself, the I am. By by being with yourself, the I, just the I exist, I am. By watching yourself, now this is the instruction. By watching yourself in your daily life with alert interest, with the intention to understand rather than to judge, in full acceptance of whatever may emerge. Because it is there, you encourage the deep to come to the surface and enrich your life and consciousness with its captive energies. This is the great work of awareness. It removes obstacles and releases energies by understanding the nature of life and mind. Intelligence is the door to freedom, and alert attention is the mother of intelligence.
Could you repeat that last sentence?
This is the great work. Now, he said here, by watching yourself with interest. Watch yourself. Watch how you react. Watch what your thoughts are. Right? Watch what you search for pleasure, and watch what you're avoiding for pain. But just to watch, just to observe, not to judge. Just to see it. This is the great work of awareness. Because awareness doesn't judge, it is aware. Awareness removes obstacles, and it releases energies by understanding the nature of life and mind. Because once there's an awareness and you see how you react and how you what you do and what you feel, once you see it and you understand it, it releases energies because you're not tied up anymore. Intelligence is the door to freedom, and alert attention is the mother of intelligence. You have to be attentive to what's going on. When you really are attentive to what's going on inside your own self, you then will act with intelligence. You won't get on that train. You won't dwell. You won't keep running for the pleasures or running away from the pain. That's freedom. One more question, the man said. Why does pleasure end in pain? He says, everything has a beginning and an end, and so does pleasure. Don't anticipate, and don't regret, and there will be no pain. It is memory and imagination that cause suffering. Right? This is mental pain. Don't anticipate and don't regret. And there will be no pain because it's memory and imagination that cause suffering. What you imagine is going to happen from what you've anticipated, how he's going to be with me, how he's going to react to me. I'm anticipating, I don't know. Right? That's what causes suffering. Of course, he goes on to say, after pleasure, then that may be, of course, pain after pleasure may be due to the misuse of the body or the mind. The body knows its measure, but the mind does not. Its appetites are numberless and limitless. Watch your mind with great diligence, for there lies your bondage and also the key to freedom.
Well said.
Right? So do we do that?
Not much.
Gotta work
Not
really hard.
much.
Gotta work really hard.
Not much, not much. We have to remember not to forget that it's awareness. Just to remember not to forget. So not to go on automatic, which we tend to do. So the minute we see that, to pull the plug. Get back to awareness. That's the key.
Like a repetition. If the same thing keeps happening, the same thing keeps happening. If you don't pull back and say it's not the other person, it's what's going on with me.
Yes,
then
exactly.
What can I do
That's right.
to make a difference?
Absolutely.
So
Because
that's that
it's-
alertness.
that's the awareness and the attention to what's
attention.
the attention to what's going on. Because yes, we do like to blame, because of you, I did this. No.
Well, that's one of the tenets in Kabbalah. I only started and I didn't stick with it very early. But what was really, what really stayed with me is that things are happening in my life because I created it. I created what was going on, and there's a reason that this is happening, and I have to figure out what my role is and what I need to do.
You create your
You
reactions.
create
Your reactions.
Your reactions. Yeah.
Life unfolds.
Right.
Who knows when the next bullet is gonna hit, a pain here, a disease there. That's a bullet that's gonna hit. But our reactions, who knows when the next rejection will be, the next big disappointment, who knows? But how we react to it, how we respond to that. And that's what we need to watch.
And understand what we bring to it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
your reaction
Yeah,
is what you
reactions.
bring to it,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So, and to really watch that, that's where the change, and that's the key to freedom, the beginning of freedom. When the mind takes over, remembers and anticipates, it exaggerates, it distorts, it overlooks. And that's true. We never remember things the way they really happened. And when we anticipate, we are going to exaggerate, because especially if we're anticipating something bad, we're going to exaggerate it and we're going to distort it. And I think that's the nature of the mind. That's what the mind does. It separates, it divides, it distorts. Okay, that's what it does when it's not in harmony. But we have awareness. We're not helpless. We have awareness. The light of awareness shines.
So it's the mind that makes the duality. is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
The mind is the dualist.
Absolutely it is. That's right. Awareness is not duality, it's non-duality. That's what this is all about.
Awareness is non-duality.
It's non-dual.
So what's the definition of duality again?
Anything that divides and separates. And it's me against you.
Well, I mean,
Us
within-
against them.
Within the mind, I think that's what
It's
I try to
kind of the
understand.
nature of the mind, because really that's how we grew, that's how we learned how to separate
Well,
from
that's what we've been
parents.
talking about, pleasure and
Pain.
pain.
There it is, that's the mind.
That's the mind.
That's right. And it really begins from childhood, when you first realize you're separate from your parents, and there's a me. And there it starts.
Mhm.
There it goes and it starts. However, even in that, there's awareness. Now, from the perspective of a 3-year-old, the awareness is not as clear as a perspective from a 13-year-old or a 30-year-old, but it's still there.
Still there.
So that's what we want to keep coming back to, that light, the light of awareness. And we come back to it every time we pay attention to what's going on. We give it real attention, because in that attention there's no me. If we give attention and we find ourselves judging, I shouldn't have done that, why did I do that, I'm a horrible person for that. Judging, the me is there, and you're not attending anymore. Now you're beating yourself up. So you go back to the me. Just to look, just to observe. We don't analyze, we just look, we just observe. That's the light of awareness. Selfishness is always destructive. Desire and fear both are self-centered states. Between desire and fear, anger arises. With anger, hatred. With hatred, passion for destruction. War is hatred in action, organized and equipped with all the instruments of death. Is there a way to end these horrors? When more people come to know their real nature, their influence, however subtle, will prevail, and the world's emotional atmosphere will sweeten up. People follow their leaders, and when among the leaders appears some great in heart and mind, and absolutely free from self-seeking, their impact will be enough to make the cruelties and crimes of the present age impossible. Are we going to get such a leader?
Well, it sounds more like, a religious leader that they're talking about, like a Jesus or somebody like that.
Well, only in the sense of knowing one's true nature. But you don't have to be religious to know your true nature. Actually, it has nothing to do with religion, right? It has, then maybe you can talk more about spirituality. It has to do with knowing your true nature and no more identifying with the self-centered states of a me. when you are free of that, then a leader like that, he said, who's free of self-seeking, who really wants to help, to serve. So when there are enough people who come to that place of knowing their true nature, that's going to happen. That has to happen. And throughout human history, it has happened.
Yeah, it's like a quantum leap.
That's right. That's right. And all the great sages weren't interested really in their religion. There was just an awakening of their true nature. Then we came in and made religions and dogmas and rituals. But in the awakening, in the seeing, there's no such thing as a religion. There's seeing, there's knowing, there's full being without this me. Okay. Be free from predilections and preferences, and the mind with its burden of sorrow will be no more. But I am not alone to suffer. There are others. Yes, that's right. Other people do suffer. It's just not me that suffers. There are many, many other people suffer. When you go to them with your desires and fears, you merely add to their sorrows. First, be free of suffering yourself, and then only hope of helping others. You don't even need to hope. Your very existence will be the greatest help a man can give his fellow man. When you yourself are free from this need, when you yourself have woken up to your true nature, when you yourself no longer identify with this ego, but know who you truly are, the awareness that always is, then your very presence, he says, is a space for the other to happen in, is an opening for the other to happen in. And that's true love.
It's contagious.
That's true. So that's why it becomes really important for us, because we're not alone. And when we're able to do that for ourselves, we're doing it for everybody else. But we have to know. So he says, watch yourself, watch the reactions, without judgment, without comparison, without condemnation. Just watch, just observe. And that's it, and learn. And as you're observing, you're learning. You're learning about yourself.
The great sage Lily Tomlin said, if someone would finally listen to it, history would stop repeating itself.
That's right.
Yeah.
How fun.
That's right.
Isn't that hysterical?
Yeah, that's great. That's right. That's right. So we have to listen to ourselves and learn from ourselves by watching ourselves and letting go. Seeing and letting go. Seeing and letting go. Constantly seeing and letting go. And then there's space, more and more space, and more energy. So, you know, it's interesting because in a way it's so simple, and yet it's hard, but it's simple.
Yeah.
And we can do it.
I just wonder if people are afraid of the space.
Oh, yes.
You know, it's like, what do I do with that?
Oh, yes. Yes, you see, that's the ego frightened of not being. then it's just emptiness. And what now? I no longer am. But the truth of it is, you already are. You see, that space is really not empty. It's full. It's full of compassion. It's full of joy. It's full. We see it as emptiness because there's no me, this center of a me. But it's beautiful. And when the fear comes up of not being, we see that. And we don't give in to it. We see it.
I was thinking too, yeah, that's a fear, an ego fear. And I was thinking before, when you look into the eyes of a dog, if you have a dog and that dog loves you, and you look into the eyes of your dog while you're petting him, there's no ego there. The dog doesn't have an ego. It's just pure acceptance and pure love. And so when you have that moment of looking into the eyes of your dog, and because there's no ego looking back, you know there's no judging, right? It's just a pure channel. In that moment, most people aren't afraid of what that feels like. That feels wonderful. It feels calming. It feels, it feels the wonderful feeling of wholehearted acceptance.
Yes.
Most people walk around with the fear that if they were fully known, they would not be truly loved.
That's right.
That's what a happy marriage is supposed to give you. The feeling that there's this one other person on the planet who knows me inside out, warts and all, and says, you're it, kid, I want you. And then that kind of acceptance, unconditional love and acceptance, is a tremendous health tonic. So I get that a little bit from my dog who loves me unconditionally. And in that moment, most of us are not feeling fear. We're feeling, the endorphins that gets released when you feel safe, safely, fully known, and fully loved.
Unless the dog is very old.
What's that?
Unless the dog is very old
And then
and ailing and declining.
Yeah.
it still loves you.
Yeah, he still loves you.
I know, but you feel like you're gonna lose that.
What you're anticipating.
Ah, that's right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
Because we're
But
not
it's
in the present
inevitable.
anymore, right?
Right.
But death is inevitable. It just is part of living.
I know.
Yes, if I'm
So
looking at
it's the
the dog,
Yeah.
and see you, Joe.
Good night,
If
Joe.
Bye, everybody.
If I'm looking, it's so good you said that, because if I'm looking at the dog and I'm saying, oh shit,
This is not
he's
gonna
so
be here
old,
tomorrow.
he's not gonna be here so
Right.
long, then thought comes in and takes me out of the moment.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's like, looking at the moon last saying, oh, but it's not like the one I saw in Hawaii,
Right.
right? It's the thought comes in and takes me out of the moment.
Talk about that, it's a full moon tonight.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So it's the imaginary fear of the spaciousness. Because the same thing with joy, there's no fear when there's joy, because there's no need. And you're full.
Well, that's like that famous saying, happiness you can pursue, but joy comes uninvited. See, and when I'm pursuing happiness, that's when there's the fear that I may not get it. I'm pursuing it, but will I get it?
How do you
But-
pursue it?
Well,
Go after things that you think will make you happy.
yeah,
Oh, objects kind of
Yeah,
thing?
yeah, yeah.
Usually I'm sure